Hey, I'm with Chris Denelle from Denelle Law, and today we're going to talk about sellers' rights and how they're protected when they need to find suitable housing. So, as you know, there's not a lot of inventory out there.
Yeah.
And a lot of people that are considering selling, that are willing to move right now, their biggest hang up is, I want to sell, but where will we go?
Yeah.
I want to sell, but I don't want to be forced to sell my house or have my house taken out from under me. And I'm nervous that we won't be able to find something.
Yeah, it's a valid concern, right? So there's a housing shortage, that's the bottom line. So
Right, and the issue that we're having is back in, 8-10 years ago, we were able to, people that want to sell were able to just go out, shop around, view a property 2-3 times, go into contract and say, then I'm going to sell my house or have a home sale contingency.
yeah,
And by doing it that way right now, sellers are really kind of shooting themselves in the foot, because when we go out and we participate in like a multi-bid situation or a new property on the market and we make an offer against 10 other offers with a house to sell, when everybody else doesn't have a house to sell, it's a major problem and we're having trouble getting our offer accepted. So typically the way that I've been telling sellers to do this, and some people choose to listen and others don't,
that's right.
Or we spin our wheels a little bit and we go out and offer with the home sale contingency, it doesn't come together, so then we kind of go back and regroup and say like, okay, let's try to talk about this one more time.
Yeah.
So what I've been doing is we put their house on the market with a subject to suitable housing contingency, so people know coming in that the seller has to find a place to go. And then once we go in contract, we do like a suitable housing addendum, which states a timeline that the buyer and the seller agree upon, that the seller has time to go out and secure housing.
Yes.
So just from a legal standpoint, because I think it's really hard for sellers that are like, really nervous about the situation, they don't want to be homeless and stuff like that. How are they protected when we set it up that way?
Right, so it's a contingency, right? So like all contingencies, like the financing contingency, inspection contingency, it's a way to ensure that should the seller not be able to find a suitable home for them, and hopefully we can add the terms in their sole discretion, right? So we make sure that they're finding like a single family residence, then they're not left in that situation where you have to sell the property, where you have to move into an extended stay or something like that, put all your items in storage. That's what we want to avoid. That's the nightmare of a seller.
Right.
But it's not really, it shouldn't really be something of concern, because again, it's going to make your offers going forward stronger, because good luck getting your offer accepted if you have that in there, right? So you don't really want to deal with that scenario you were talking about earlier, but you have that strong offer going forward, so you can go out there and start looking at houses, okay? If you can't find that house, if you can't get your offer accepted, if you can't find reasonable, suitable housing, then from there, you can exercise that contingency, much like if a buyer can't get financing, they can exercise their contingency, and then the agreement would become null and void.
Right.
Right. So that's the big term there. You just want to make sure that the agreement goes away essentially if you can't find the house and you don't want to keep the transaction going forward. So you wouldn't be left homeless again, that nightmare scenario. So that's why it's a good opportunity for sellers, right? So that way you can go ahead and start putting more competitive offers out there, because outside of that, it's a difficult scenario, and that's one of the reasons we have this inventory crunch, really.
Yeah, and I think too, like I've had I've had sellers where they aren't able to secure housing, and they say, like, our timeline is up, should we back out? Should we just kill the deal?
Yeah.
But then there's sometimes where the buyer really wants to stay in it. And
That's right.
so then the buyer will say, I'll give you an extra 30 days. I'll give you an extra 60 days, as long as the financing works and they don't have to do a rate lock or something like that. Then they're willing to give them time. And the likelihood right now with the low inventory of a buyer willing to hang in there for you, I think that's probably something that could likely happen. And then sometimes there is the one-off where it's like, okay, the buyer is done waiting and the seller can't find something, and we kind of just all leave with what we came in with and there's nothing further. One of the benefits that I feel too financially for the seller, by them listing their house first, securing a buyer, going under contract, not only does it make your offer stronger because you don't have to have a home sale contingency, but you can also be pleasantly surprised by what you think you're getting for your house.
Right.
You know, we recently had a client that we listed their house for $469 conservatively in this market. We ended up getting under contract with several contingencies waived with a buyer for almost $40,000 over the asking price.
Yeah.
So that gave the seller the confidence to go out and be more aggressive with offers because they knew they had that extra money to rely on. So it's almost like twofold, where you can find the time to shop, and then you also are really well informed about what your proceeds will be from the sale, so you can turn around and use it on your purchase.
Right. We do it all the time for your net sheets, so you know exactly what you're walking away with, right? So that way you know what your buying power is. You can get out there, you may even get into a different neighborhood or tier of house. So it could definitely provide you with the information necessary to become more competitive. And like you were stating before, the buyers of your property are in the same market that you're in, right? So they're dealing with the same inventory crunch. So there is a good likelihood that they may want to extend, okay? Again, always stay within time frames, okay? There are deadlines on contingencies, so you gotta make sure you pay attention to those. And if you're getting to the end, there's a good chance that the buyer may want to stay in the game, right? Give you an extra 30 days, give you an extra 40, 45 days. So it's definitely a good tool that you can have to become more competitive as a buyer for your subsequent house. So awesome.
If you're thinking about selling and you want to get a seller net sheet or hear about your rights as a seller to do a subject to suitable housing, feel free to reach out to us directly or DM.